Kathleen,
Yes.
your writing is so consistently funny and on point. I mean,
Well-
that's what the challenge says, but I'm also saying that.
Aw, thank you.
So that's two of us.
Challenge complete.
Praise me, excellent.
Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process and perhaps share a couple tips?
Oh yeah, yeah. If you are like me and you want to get into writing comedy, my first tip for you is going to be the kind of boring tip that many other people will tell you, and it's just practice. I decided I wanted to write funny things when I was 7 years old. I started reading Peanuts, and I realized I wanted to do a comic. I wanted to be a cartoonist, is what I thought I wanted to do. And I've never been like, I'm not a bad artist by any stretch of the imagination. Like I designed a lot of our penny arcade pins, like Spoopifer and like Creepy Doll and all that, and all those pins, and like the cactus pins, like all like if you've seen any of our penny arcade pins, Featherweight draws a lot of them, but I also draw a lot of them. So I'm not a bad artist. But I wanted to draw cartoons because I didn't realize that the option was available to me to do a sitcom or just writing funny dialogue. So I have been trying to write jokes and funny dialogue since I was about 7 years old. And practice, 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 practice. And my tips for you is if you're going to write a character, it's really hard to birth an organic character with likes and dislikes and foibles and stuff just from thin air. But what's important to do is each character must have a unique voice when they are presented with a situation. So you have to think to yourself, well, how would this character react? What would this character say in this situation? And so even though when I write Commodore Hustle on Friday nights, we're playing like amped up versions of ourselves, I try to keep everybody's voice unique and distinct. So like we've had shooting days where somebody has like, I've written them into the script and they've canceled, they're like, or not canceled, but they're like, I actually am sick and I won't be coming in tomorrow. So I've had to juggle around the script and change who's saying the lines, and you can't just have somebody saying the lines that belong to another character because it won't come out right. So then you have to completely change all the dialogue to match the new person that's saying it. And I think that's really important, that each character that you write needs to have a distinct voice. They need to react in their own unique ways to a distinct situation. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of talking heads with no personalities, just saying filler lines until you can get to your punchline. Oh, which is also really important, filler lines. Filler lines are terrible, and you should always take them out of your scripts. What I do is I will take my idea, like it's usually an idea that many people have brainstormed, so my idea is not the correct term. It is the idea that a lot of people have contributed to it. It's like, oh, what if we did this? And my character could do this, and then we'd do that. Matt Griffiths, who's I know is at work, but you can come in here and you can back me up because you've been in some of our writing meetings now, right? And we sort of like, we all brainstorm ideas together, and we kind of figure out what character wants to do, like what people's characters will be doing.
Yep.
And then like how they might react to a situation. And then we have sort of a rough outline. And then I take that and I sit at my computer and I then turn that into words. And I just like write something very rough. And then I read the script and I'm like, oh, well, I have 2 lines here of somebody describing something that I don't need to have. And I just figured out how to get them out. And the idea, you just make it as tight and
maintain momentum.
Yeah, you maintain momentum is a really good way of saying it, because if people are just spinning their wheels for like half a page, it's not funny, it's not good to watch. Yeah, and I always just try to ask people, it's like, well, does this work for your character? This is the kind of line that I wrote. Does that make sense to you? Is that something you'd say? Because we're like adding a bunch of characters to Commodore Hustle right now. Like we're adding Heather and Corey right now, and I want their characters to emerge organically through the things they say. So Heather's like, I'd like it if my character could say things that are kind of unsettling. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So the first time I think I really nailed her character dialogue is when we were doing the Smoked Out episode, where it's just like, hey, we have, it's like, yeah, we can see that there's ash falling from the sky. And Heather's like, yeah, it's actually kind of beautiful, like if they had Christmas in hell. Which is like, not the kind of thing a normal person says in normal conversation, but like, you know, that's...
I mean, I would.
That's why you work at our office now, man.
Yeah.
But you know, just try to be, you know, try to get that little like weird twist of the knife unsettling thing in there, so it's like, oh.
And if you have a particularly extravagant kind of trick you want to do in the script, make sure to write it for yourself. Like dunking a whole bucket of water onto Kathleen.
That's less like a universal script rule and more just kind of a loading ready run thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is like you have to eat your own. You have to eat your own dog food or some sort of whatever metaphors I'm mixing.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna be like, wow, it'd be really funny if Adam makes a high tide joke. By the way, the high tide joke was Adam's idea, and he's like, oh, I should just be like high tide and dump a bunch of water on you guys. And I was like, okay. And he's like, wait, really? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I think that's great. I'm putting it in the script. Because I'm not going to volunteer Paul for that. Because one, Paul's character, Paul is too normal and sensible. Paul would never get into a situation where he was moaning and lying on the floor and being dramatic.
At least on Friday nights.
But
Commodore
totally.
Hustle,
Yeah.
probably not so normal, but
Well, Cam and I
not in
like,
the same deal.
Cam and I like playing bad, stupid people. So I sort of lean into that. So, my horrific
Nice.
angler friends on the poster
Well, I like the way the upper and lower jaw are.
are not connected.
You look like Violator from Spawn.
Ew.
Yeah. Kathleen and Cam getting taken down a peg works really well on Friday nights. Yeah, I think that's the important thing is to always punch up in your comedy. So for doing, how do I explain that? The people you should pick on in comedy are the people who deserve it. So within the context of Friday nights, that's me and Cam for being elitist about playing like black and blue and stuff like that, and the best colors and being so good.
But like I think that's partly the whole thing about, you know, we always talk about like in Tussle especially, you know, everybody is terrible in certain ways.
Yes.
So that makes it so it's sort of fair game to have bad stuff happen to everybody.
Well, before you tear someone down, you have to build them up.
That's true, yeah. And I feel like Camper and I do a great job of puffing up our own characters. And yeah, and I think the important, and another really good tip is, Graham and I do this a lot with each other, is I will sit there, I will take everybody's ideas that everybody contributes, not just me. I will synthesize them into a script based on people's suggestions, and I try always very hard to get everybody's suggestions into a script, even if you have to sort of use like a little bit of a crowbar sometimes to get them in there. But if not, if they're bad suggestions.
Well, yes.
Well, those usually if we do a writing workshop meeting, we'll sort of like.
There are definitely bad ideas in brainstorming.
Yeah, but usually
sometimes they're not good.
as a group, we sort of push those ones out, right? And you know, then I write everything down, I read it over, and I'm like, okay, this line is just repeating information that doesn't need to be explained because we're going to see it on screen. Show, don't tell. Take out that. Trim, get it down tight, and then you give it to somebody else who's not you for what in writing is called a punch-up pass. When they review your writing, and they do things like check for logical inconsistencies, which is really important because sometimes you'll have a character come in and that doesn't quite close the loop. It's really hard to explain what a logical inconsistency is because we take them all out, so you know. And check it for, is this joke funny? Does this need to be here? Does this need to be tightened up? Does this land well? Is this joke so good that you could have one more back and forth on top of it just to really like nail it home? So sometimes it's expanding other people's work. Yeah, so that's my writing tip, I guess. So I hope for the other writers in the room,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that. Like, there's a couple of distinct phases that writing goes through. With like, there's the like brainstorming part, but then I don't know. At least for me, I find it almost impossible to write, especially something like a script, like a longer script. Crop shots sometimes work, but like a longer script, I find it almost impossible to write in a big group. You know, you brainstorm and come up with all sorts of ideas, but then you sort of have to have like one person or a team or whatever go away and like actually turn it into a real thing. And then the sort of the third phase is come back and do like punch up stuff, editing stuff, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there does have to be, at least for me, there has to be that section of sort of working on it by yourself, or kind of one voice or one person who can kind of keep it all in their brain at the same time, so they can talk about it.
Yeah, there's I'll tell you exactly the loading, ready, run script process, which is brainstorming either in person or just via Slack. We'll just throw ideas around in Slack. What are some ideas? And then like, oh, well, if we do this, does anybody have anything to contribute? And because then we can sort of like, do that process over several days, which is really good for Friday nights. It's like, oh, what if we do it about this? Ooh, exciting, and then somebody else will come in a couple days later. I just thought of an amazing interaction. Those scripts are really hard to write because you're trying to make technically correct things about magic while also being funny, but also it's on the official Wizards channel, so there's lots of things you cannot say.
Yeah.
And then one person will take all those ideas, write it out into a script, hand it to somebody else for review, and then we typically get together a day of and read the script. And then it's like, what do you think? Do you guys like, is this stuff that you'd say? Did it capture it? Do you want to change your lines? And we're always very open to like people changing delivery or lines in filming if it's like, I just thought of something that would be better or more funny for my character. Although occasionally I do come in and I say, no, you need to say this exactly as is because it is written that way and we need to call back to this exact dialogue later.
Or either because it's like a specific card thing, or because we need it for later on. It's got to be the same.
Yeah, I've made James say some real tongue twisters in the name of, I think this is very funny, so please don't change these words. So, yeah, I think that was a sufficiently blathery answer about writing techniques and style. So, yes, do it a lot, I guess, is my suggestion for if you would like to start writing. And it's a really good way to start writing is if you're like, I have trouble coming up with characters, but I could come up with dialogue. You could use other people's characters. Literally write fan fiction. Yeah. Just like take Kirk and Spock and Yuri and Victor if you want. It doesn't matter. This
all
is just
four
for
of them
you.
together.
And make it real sexy. I mean, make him, put them together in medieval England and see how they'll react. But not how they'll react to, oh my goodness, there's no ice, we'll miss our ice skating competition. Like how they react based on their actual personalities. And those are four extremely well-defined people and characters, which is like, I picked them sort of out of my head, but they've all got distinct personalities, and you could do that as a writing exercise. Kiss. I mean, obviously you make them all kiss. But
it has to come out of their personalities.
But after they defeat some sort of medieval monster.
As we all know, their personalities that
Kathleen's
they want to
encouraging fanfic. Yeah, fanfic is how a lot of really good people learned how to write.
Yeah.
Yuri stood up, his 8-pack glistening with sweat. As he looked across the Starfleet ship, he made eyes with Spock.
And really bad ones too, it's true.
Yeah.
But practice makes perfect.
Yeah.